How we doing? Just a month left in the semester. You're almost there. Yes, that sounded like a very subdued. Yeah. No, we'll get the energy up. Welcome to a celebration of literature and living writers. My name is Megan Marshall. I'm the director of the Husey Hyde Living Writers series. And tonight we are kicking off our celebration of National Poetry Month. See, now we're excited. With the wonderful poet and translator who just also happens to be an SDSU MFA program alum. Yes. Before I welcome him to the podium, I do want to thank those who have helped to make this series and this event possible, and that includes all of our friends here at Love Library, my fabulous co-host Michael Tumlin, and also Laura Bliss, Rebecca Williamson, and Joelle Adano. And I also want to thank the Department of English and Comparative Literature for their continued support of the series. It's also essential to acknowledge the space that we are privileged to share tonight. For millennia, the Kumeyaay people have been a part of this land. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations. And as members of the SDSU community, we acknowledge and celebrate this legacy. Lastly, if you haven't done so already, please silence your cell phones. And know that this event is being recorded, but don't worry, all you see is this box here. If you are interested in watching this recording or other amazing, exciting Living Writers related content, please check us out on YouTube, like, subscribe, drop us a comment. All right. Without further ado, I am honored to introduce our featured writer. Piotr Florczyk is an award-winning poet, scholar, essayist, and translator of nearly 30 books in English and in Polish, including, most recently, Dialogue and Influence, Essays on Polish and American Poets, and Hemorrhages and Squirrels, a translation of the poet Jakob Kornhauser. He holds degrees from the University of Pacific, San Diego State, and University of Southern California. In addition to his books, he has published poems, translations, essays, and reviews in many journals, including the American Scholar, Harvard Review, the New Yorker, Notre Dame Review, Los Angeles Review of Books, Pleiades, Slate, and World Literature Today, among many others. His latest publishing project, Text Shop Editions, co-founded with Kevin A. Wisniewski, is dedicated to publishing short experimental works. Contributing editor at Copper Nickel and FDSU's very own Poetry International, he also serves on the editorial board of the Literary Multilingualism book series at Brill. Piotr has taught poetry and literature at many universities and is currently Associate Professor of Global Literary Studies at the University of Washington, Seattle. And fun fact, he also used to be a competitive swimmer. I know, right? Poet and a competitive swimmer. Weird. Piotr's work has been deemed ruminative, bold, vision-changing, as well as rhapsodic and playful. He writes cross-culturally with a keen poet's eye for imagery and music, and a translator's command of language and diction. His work re-envisions familiar themes of discovery, loss, and assimilation, inviting readers to experience them in fresh ways. His skill as a translator, and as he called himself today in one of our workshops, the legislator of translation, a legislator of translation, from the Polish, is sharp and astute. It has not only fed his own poetics in evocative ways, but has fed the American literary landscape with poetry and prose from greats like Anna Swir, but also, maybe even more importantly, from those voices who may not have found their way to English-speaking audiences. As translator Willis Barnstone states, good translation of poetry is essential to a hungry reader in a decent bookstore and to a global village of letters. So for his indelible contributions to our global community of letters, let's please give a warm welcome to Piotr.
Get my printouts. Thank you so much, Megan, for that generous introduction and for having me here. Thank you to BLAS, the program, the MFA program, excuse me, the Department of English and Comparative Literature, To all of you for coming out. It's great to be back here, a place that not only taught me what poetry is and how to be a poet, but also allowed me to become a practitioner of poetry. Before I came to San Diego State, I knew I wanted to be a poet, but didn't really know what that meant. And it was in this place, including this library, that I got to hone my skill as a poet, which is, of course, an ongoing um, process. So, what I'm going to do is read a medley of works. This will be poems, older and newer, works in translation. If we have time, I will read a small nonfiction excerpt from a book that came out a couple years ago, in which I talk about my life as a swimmer who, halfway through his undergrad, decided that he wanted to be a poet. So, as some would say, I went from being a jock to someone who is sensitive and cares about words and the arts. And I'll read for about 30 minutes. Again, thanks for having me. I'm going to open with a longer poem from this book called East and West because I'm like super hyphenated. I'm Polish, but also American. I swim and I write poems. And this book that came out in 2016 opens with a poem called 1989. And it's a poem that will tell you quite a bit about who I am and where I come from originally. 1989, of course, if you're not familiar with that year, was the year where in Central and Eastern Europe, countries such as Poland, Hungary, the former Eastern Bloc countries, became democratic for the first time in a number of decades. And to this day, there's quite a bit of debate about that watershed moment. You know, some people see it as a return to democracy, et cetera, et cetera. Others see it as introduction of capitalism and all its evils to that part of the world. So this poem, it's an allegorical poem, and it plays with a number of these sentiments and ideas. And it's a longer poem, so bear with me, please. 1989. It was a strange life we lived. Strange people knocked on our doors at strange hours and asked for 2 eggs, a frying pan. Strange how we dressed in the same gray suits and hats. Remember? Our future was unpaved. If we stretched our arms out, took 5 steps to the right or the left, there was the wall. So we moved little, like shadows at the onset of night. Then you showed up with a scoped rifle slung across your back, pushing a white top-load Maytag on a dolly. We greeted you as if you'd never left. Which is why nobody noticed your breasts, the glasses, or the stars tattooed on the inside of your right wrist, the way you wrapped your hair around your finger, nervous before strangers, even though you were raised on faith alone, and then schooled in East and West. What happened after your hot air balloon escape? Like others, from this side of Sands, we got hard labor, but not as bad as Grandma's stint at Carl Zeiss in Nazi days. At least we knew you wouldn't grow up too tall at the Coke plant. Everybody worked there. Your father, Uncle Stephen, Aunt Stella, the red-haired twins who lived below us. Together they rode the rickety tram in the mornings, never missing their stop. On weekends, we fished for King Carp, checked our place on the list for the Fiat family car, attended Sunday Mass. Then the strikes began. Profits went down or up through trapdoors over the fence. The air stung. Imagine the fun we had hunkered between potted ferns on the balcony, skipping stones at the enemy. Next, our food rations were cut. One loaf of bread a day instead of two, a small brick of butter mixed with lard per week. Hardly any meat except chicken bouillon, which we diced like a Rubik's cube. The waiting lines became the talk of the town. Yesterday's news served as toilet paper. After they shut down the colleges and interned the faculty, your father said that words don't grow on trees. So we read the way we ate, slowly, unsure which words we were allowed to keep. This is how we found out about the tanks in Budapest, Prague, Sofia, Bucharest. Monks transcribing prison verse, bards rewriting Beatles songs for bound hands. I too wanted to sing our way out of here with a guitar I got from a Swedish friend, but it broke while I was being chased. Tell me, where did you learn to speak so fluently? 10 years and your accent hasn't changed. You still roll your R's and shorten those pesky Slavic vowels. Your boots stood at attention in the foyer. You told us you flew high above Europe, across La Manche, before the winds carried your balloon back to Munich, where you were shut down accidentally. A refugee. You attended a boarding school. You prayed in German for those who pole vaulted the barbed wires but would never walk again. Lucky for you, you said, by the time you finished college, Cold War had entered its final dawn. Still, you stayed up late, calculating how far a heart travels from home with each beat. If you were a boy, I would have asked how often you nicked your smooth jaw before you learned to shave, but since you were a girl, my girl, who showed you how to fit a bra? Was there a man in your life? I wept, knowing how much we'd missed. But with the neighbors coming over with Bulgarian wine, your father and I kissed and hugged you instead. We didn't ask about the gun. Suddenly unwilling to share with you with anyone, including your cousins, Alex and Jan. Believe me, we were beside ourselves at the sight of the washing machine made in the USA. Those buttons and knobs. The days of bending over a wash bowl were over. Sheeted in aluminum was a drum the size of a sauerkraut barrel, you explained. And while the cycles were limited to cold and hot, the spin to fast and slow, meaning there was no way for us to lose control, our faces had already been bleached by grins. We couldn't wait to finally sieve, sort, and disembody the impurities in our garb or in our lives. You're free, you said to us, to do as you please. Go on now, try it out. But who'd have thought the Maytag would work to this day? Buried under towels and coats in the basement, its motor revs up dutifully. Then the whole thing shudders, slides like a continent toward its future. Doubtless, my daughter, it will last until the final load, until the ants march it out through the back, even though there is a tendency in this house to overload the thing with too much that just won't wash out. Thank you. So I moved to the States in the first days of September 1994. After being selected by the Polish Swimming Federation to be the next recipient of a fellowship that would send me to Southern California to swim, to train and race, and live with a host family. And I've been here ever since, 32 years. And it it's taken me a really long time to realize, possibly when I became a father for the first time myself, what it must have meant for my parents to let their kid go, because they did not come here with me. I came here by myself. I have two sisters. So all of them remained and still live in Poland. So this poem is my way of thinking about my parents and my place here in the States. It's a short poem. It's called On the Anniversary of My Birth. If this poem gets hijacked, smuggled across the 7 seas, my parents won't be able to read it. An English dictionary, they thumbed one once, I think. And my wife, the things she can do with her eyebrows instead of with Polish. Our daughter is learning the language by interpreting for her. The sounds coming out of our mouths communicate, as the poet said, before they're understood. But that's only half the truth. See, my mother and father, years ago, signed on the dotted line, which is why I am here and they are there. In a way, it's a miracle that my wife and I continue to be married and that I am still my parents' son. Is that it? Hiding my face in my hands, I weep for them. Thank you. So during one of the meetings with the students today, I may have given it away that I'm a big projects person. I like projects, and collecting stamps. And in fact, I've written a sequence of poems about stamps in my collection. But about a decade ago, I got really involved in studying national anthems. Because you can learn a great deal about countries and people by listening to what they sing about, right? Not just the music, of course, which tells you typically when the country became independent because of the musical style that happened to be in fashion at the time, but the words, the lyrics of the anthems are really, really fascinating. Some nations are really proud of their history. Others are thankful for existing still, so on and so forth. So this poem is a composite poem in which I play with some of the things I've learned when I listen to national anthems and research national the best of national tropes, etc. It's called People's Overture. Arise, children, get dressed and eat your toast with gooseberry jam before it's too late. To arms, parents. Let's march the kids back to school. Our cities may be asleep, the worms getting all the treats, but the farmers demand we act while our future, giggling, dangles from the gallows. Hurry, someone, for God's sake, reset the sun clock to 00. Years hence, no one will care if we kept our pie holes stuffed with something other than lyrics. The Queen watches no TV. God saves her toil and trouble, powder in the air, she breathes. Though the pitch teems with knavish double agents looking to score a draw, our hearts rattle like baby teeth in a biscuit tin. If we had it our way, we'd scrap the past, take turns putting Scipio's helmet on and watch our Vespas morph into Ducatis. We were born hollow canolos, bounds between relatives, finger deep in dope in Chianti. Dolce Vita, God willing, we'll spend the rest of our days sucking on teats, or, if push comes to shove, munching on kebabs rolled inside Beamer food trucks off Venice Boulevard. Nostra culpa, the leather pants and the Tottenkampf come out just on holidays. We're ourselves for real when we wrap our arms around a whipped horse's neck. But, ooh la la, it's the screeching night train packed with refugees from a hockey game that reminds us why, after every war, we unlock our doors. Just don't ask the man with the blower strapped to his chest about maple leaves growing far and wide. We'll endure like the 1,000-year-old bison grass vodka. We'll ford rivers, cross the Rockies, naked if we must. After 69 mazurkas, let's give Chopin another chance. Thank you. This is a newer poem from a manuscript that I'm just about done putting together. I am, again, projects, right? So I'm really, this latest project, excuse me, is looking at the films of Krzysztof Kieślowski. Krzysztof Kieślowski was a well-known Polish director and screenwriter. He lost out at Cannes to Pulp Fiction, 1994. He was the runner-up for the Palme d'Or. Really important filmmaker in my life. So this poem or this collection, all of the poems in short prose sections at about the props, characters, themes, subjects that you encounter when you watch his films, starting with his early documentaries that he made in the 1970s, all the way through the early 1990s when he made what's known as the Three Colors trilogy, right? Blue, white, and red, the three colors that correspond to the ideals embedded in the French flag. So this poem is called, and all of you creative writing students should recognize the title. It's called Negative Capability. Not the rain, not the sun slicing the clouds, not the rows of daffodils blinding the passersby, not the buttons, not the fingers, not the cranks being gripped and turned, not the water rising and falling whenever a pleasure boat wants out. But why is it always about leaving and not about coming back? Not the salmon, not even the ladder left behind by Jacob's kin. The cavernous ferry, not a pleasure boat, sang, but 7 of us were pulled out alive. We're shivering under blankets. The widow, the rebound, the ex, the barber with a comb for a harmonica, the chewing gum girl, and the law student, and the barman. You be the judge, re what happens next, but not the storm, not the sandbar, not the dog that paddled to shore and barked. So when I first contacted Megan about having me here at San Diego State, first time in, what did we say, 11 years? Yeah, since the last time I read here was in 2015. The idea behind it was to celebrate the publication of this book that came out last fall. And this is a collection of prose poems by the Polish poet, scholar, translator, critic, Jakub Kornhauser. who was supposed to be here. We were both supposed to appear here as part of the our book tour that would take us here, Atlanta, LA, Seattle, New Orleans, and a couple other cities. Ultimately, Jakub, the poet, couldn't be here, so I'm super grateful to Megan for not canceling the event because it wasn't having me here solo was not the original thing we had discussed and agreed to. I apologize for that again. But this book came out last fall, and it's a collection that Jakub or Kuba, because as it is in the States, most people in Poland use their diminutive, the diminutive version of their name. So his name is Jakub, but in Polish that means he's Kuba. Everyone calls him Kuba. Richard, Rich, Dick, Michael, Mike, etc. And so Kuba has done about 5 or 6 books of his own work. Among his many honors are the Wisława Szymborska Prize, which is a huge honor in Poland, and he won that for like his second or third book, a really, really cool thing. And this book, what he does in it, it's the first one I've translated, really the first pieces of his that I've translated. What he does in this book, he takes, again, props, themes, subjects, symbols, metaphors found across the work of his father, whose name is Julian Kornhauser, the first poet I ever translated into English, but also found across the work of Adam Zagajewski's. And so what you have is essentially an intertextual collection of prose poems containing echoes of other people's work. Again, mainly his father's, Julian's, and Adam Zagajewski's. I'll read a couple of these poems. Poem about remembrance. One must proceed according to the manual. Not all of it is entirely clear. After all, memory doesn't resemble a washing machine, refrigerator, or an IKEA shelving unit. Memory requires kindness and clean air. Hence, it's easier to care for memories in Bermuda than Eastern Europe. It's only with seagrass in the mouth that one remembers anything. Poem about slacking off. Work hardly makes one rich. Work is a source of pain, nasty pain. We want no pain, so we don't work, but philosophize instead. We tell others that work enriches while we stretch out in bed and sleep. Or we go for a walk in leather boots, being mindful of catching a cold, or our lips getting chapped. That's what lip balm is for. Lips getting chapped. How about this one? Poem about Poland. Its equipment includes the famous Line 124 bus, which now runs on a different route, snails that still have not decided what to do in life, a railway viaduct decorated with lopsided acronyms from a football reading book, a daily newspaper that, despite rebranding, has not recovered its former glory, as well as butter, soap, and potatoes, which are fought over in presidential campaigns. Let's read one more. So as you can see, very reverent word. Okay, how about this one? Because this is what many of us do. This is the category professionally we belong in. Poem for literary scholars. Poem for literary scholars going through a crisis of vocation, dreaming of a post in which they find fulfillment, and do something for humanity. For example, while working in a hospital. There one can extract countless hearts, open the skin, deliver one baby after another. But it's all too beautiful to be true. We're not talking about dreaming. Imagination is brittle and light, yet quick and precise. Too, it attacks the dark stems of veins. It's a poem. Jerzy Jarniewicz is a contemporary Polish poet and scholar and theorist of translation. And this is from a book called Landless Boys. And I'll read two of these poems in my translation. Wind blowing through the holes. My first country where Hitler stamps are a currency exchangeable like ivory in the outpost of white missionaries. 5 stamps for a robe of beads or round of prayers for every execution in the family. Mother remembers standing against the wall, but she's alive because he was a good German, so there'll be no prayers. From that time, I inherited a helmet full of holes that's vintage Nazi and a bayonet. Who could have sensed that as we were saying goodbye, a rocket barrage would level half of our city? In the other, a rat is hiding, our silent ally who spied on us while we, gazing into each other's eyes, made love. And with this picture in his brain, he'll live a moment longer. Thank you. So I opened with 1989. This poem's called 1986. A hefty obscenity in a biography that's already indecent. I've been alive longer than my mother. I used to trek to get morphine for her to the district's only pharmacy selling it legally. Doctors from Copernicus Hospital were prescribing minimal doses so that she wouldn't get addicted. She lived 2 extra months. She passed unaddicted. Several months after her funeral, I invited a friend to Łódź. He told the students about sardines while they expected a report from a besieged city. He was nearing 40, but was younger than my students, fresh out of high school. When he left, I discovered Chernobyl beyond the eastern border. A May Day parade marched down Piotrkowska Street. I fed the kids Lugol's iodine. 20 years later, I wrote this poem. If I'm reading it to you, my afterlife continues. If you're reading it yourself, nothing certain can be said. Two more poems. Our meeting today opened with a translation workshop, translation of poems by Anna Świerszczyńska, aka Anna Swer, an important Polish poet known here in the States, mainly for her book of poems called Building the Barricade, in which she documented her experience of participating as a military nurse in the 1944 Warsaw Uprising. So we had a very productive, I think, conversation about translation, what it entails, etc. And then we did a little translation workshop where everybody translated 2 of Świerszczyńska's poems. So I'll read 2 more, and this will be the last thing I'll read. I'll read one of them in Polish and in English. So So there are 102, if I remember correctly, poems in that book. This is the opening poem. The last Polish uprising. We lament the hour when it all began, when the first shot was fired. We lament the 63 days and 63 nights of battle and the hour when everything ended. When the place where 1,000,000 people had lived became the emptiness of 1,000,000 people. So in a book that long, it's inevitable perhaps that one will have one will like some poems better than others. So out of all of those poems, this is my favorite. This is my favorite poem in that entire collection. And guess what? Do we have any Polish readers, listeners? Okay, I'm going to read it in Polish first. Człowiek i stonoga. Ja przeżyję. Znajdę taką najgłębszą piwnicę, zamknę się, nie wpuszczę nikogo, wygrzebię w ziemi jamę, zębami wygryzę cegły, schowam się w murze, wejdę w mur jak stonoga. Wszyscy umrą, a ja przeżyję. All right, go ahead. What did you just hear? Same poem. Thanks again for having me. Man and Centipede. I will survive. I'll find the deepest basement, shut myself inside, won't let anybody in. I'll dig a hole in the ground, chew out the bricks. I'll hide in the wall, I'll go into the wall like a centipede. Everyone will die and I will survive. Thank you.
Round of applause. Yeah.